Welcome to Talk Tantra to Me. It is such an honor to be holding space for this divine knowledge to make its way into your ears and lifestyle. Today, I talk Tantra with Rina Trevi. She is a vulnerability guide, and her intention is to create a safe space for people to fall apart. She uses tools such as Shibari, Tantra, and life coaching to guide individuals in this way. I'm so grateful for her content and so appreciative that she's here on the podcast to offer her perspective of living an expansive life. So thank you for being here, Rina. Why don't you start by telling us a bit more about your journey with becoming a vulnerability guide? How did you discover this passion and purpose?
Oh, thanks for having me, darling. I'm so happy we've met, and I can see lots of similarities in our journey and the things that we do. So that's why it feels really beautiful and safe to be sisters on the path. And yeah, let me share a bit more about where it started for me. So I was born in Russia, and things were quite restrictive there. Post-Soviet Russia in the 90s was not a friendly place to expose yourself, reveal yourself, share your feelings, emotions, sexuality. Everything was quite repressed. And I believe that's really what drove me into this desire for freedom, for like breaking open, for having this freedom to be yourself, because where I grew up, it was not possible to be yourself. You had to constantly adjust and mold yourself to fit in. And sexuality was not at all practiced consciously. It was either repressed or weaponized, like used to get what you want in manipulative ways. So it was really an example, like a really grotesque kind of example of how you can make it wrong, like because everything was either repressing or using it in unconscious manipulative kind of like ways. So there was nothing about pleasure, nothing about intimacy and connection. And I felt from the beginning, I felt something is off. There must be something else. I just had this gut feeling in me, and my search for freedom has started like as soon as I was 18 years old. I came to United States. And that's when I was really curious to explore, like, new life, new country, new world. What is that about? But then I came to a new matrix, then American dream, like getting a house, like having a corporate job, like being a successful person in the eyes of society. And that also brought me to another sense of repression, being working in corporate world, like smiling at the right times, saying right things, answering right questions. And yeah, saying exactly what you're supposed to say, never really revealing how you really feel. And I was again like resisting. I wanted to get out of it. I wanted to break free. And my first doorway to freedom was becoming a dominatrix in New York City, because that was like a really strong statement. Like, I'm not going to comply. I'm going to make it my way. And that's it. I will own my sexuality. I will tell others what to do. They will obey me, they will listen to me. Like, I don't have to be the submissive, nice Russian girl all the time looking for a husband, or kind of like cliches, things like that. I can be really different. So that was my path, just starting to explore myself and trying to finding ways to see something different, something beyond the masks that we are wearing, because the clients that would come to see me as a dom, they would be really raw and real. They would be so authentic with me. They would finally share what their heart's desiring are, what their like most intimate secret fantasies are. And I felt finally like I'm approaching my place. And it was still a journey. It wasn't happening, flowing so easily for me right away. It was definitely a challenging one. I had my own ups and downs, crises along the way. But thanks to this work, I discovered Thailand. I started to go there and search for spiritual path. I had spiritual inspiration since I was very young, and I was looking for more opportunities to find communities, to find ways to pursue my spiritual aspirations. And eventually Tantra and BDSM world started to come together, and I realized, like, while I do feel like my role in this world to work with that sexual energy, it's just there are different avenues for explorations, and which I ended up narrowing down to Shibari, the Japanese art of time.
Mhm.
Tantric massages, mostly for women, Yoni massages, genital massages in a tantric way to liberate sexuality, authenticity, and embody your full orgasmic nature, and all kinds of educational programs and coaching around those subjects.
Absolutely beautiful. Thank you for sharing with such depth, and like you shared the full circle of your story and where you are now with that, and that's amazing. And there's so many different places we could go next with this, and I really want to hear a lot more about what you're doing now, especially the Shibari and the Tantra massage. But I'd like to like go a little bit deeper in your story as well. And you had shared a bit about how like becoming this dominatrix was like you came from this space where you had to be quite performative and be perfect, and that dom, like becoming a dom, was like reclaiming that. And I find it so interesting because for so many people externally, they look at like the BDSM space, the kink space, with like judgment and confusion, when in reality, like it can be so healing, both for yourself as a way to reclaim your own power, reclaim your sexuality, but also for your clients. So I'd love to hear more about like how that impacted the people that you worked with, like what that created, what kind of result, why someone would
Yeah.
like seek out that space like therapeutically.
Yeah, it was not a therapeutic space right away, although it definitely did have a potential, especially for me, as I could see that my confidence is definitely growing. Yet the space itself, the owners of the dungeon in Manhattan where I worked, were not really curious about spirituality, psychology, like impact in any way. They were pretty superficial. So interactions with my clients tend to be more superficial, kind of like fast food type of interaction, kind of coming in and out to satisfy your fantasy for domination, or all kinds of fetishes out there, which was a great step for all of us. I believe we had to get started somewhere, and our first
Yeah.
step was that, like, although it was lacking that depth and knowledge and mentorship, like I didn't have any of it. I just started like this, just a couple of days of training, and like, that's it, here is your first client, like, and I just had to fake it until I make it, like figure it out on the spot. My first client tells me, I'm into verbal domination, verbal humiliation, nothing else, no touch, no physical torture. What do I do? I'm an immigrant from Russia. I don't know any of those words. How do I humiliate someone? I've been always a good girl. So it was definitely a shock for my system to adjust to that. But it was a really good kind of shock, because I really needed to be shaken up a bit from the comfort zone of like trying to fit in one matrix and then the other. And here it was like more room for spontaneity, explorations, creativity, inquiry, asking like why people even want that, like why somebody comes to me to be humiliated for an hour, like what's the point? Someone would come to me to be face slapped for an hour. Why are they seeking that? So I started to question this and ask many people, and the answers were like mostly, well, I guess they're looking for some release, and guess they want to change things up because they are usually men of power. And the kind of clients that would see me would be some successful business owners, like Wall Street guys, some different men who have a lot of control on their shoulders. So they generally seek to relinquish this control, to trust somebody else to guide them and lead them. So that was the first answer I got. And then eventually I started to look for more answers, like, okay, but what else? Why exactly this way? Why this fantasy? So that curiosity started to slowly uncover the layers, and I started to study, to read, to get educated, to talk to clients more. I started to seek what is my type of specialty here, because initially I would want to do everything all at once. Let me try this, let me try that. Erotic domination was really easy for me, because as a classic Russian girl, you're trained to seduce someone and take their stuff and run away.
Oh my God.
So that was kind of like easy for me to tease and denial kind of fantasies, like when you tease someone and then you don't give them pleasure and they beg you for pleasure, but you don't give them pleasure. Like that kind of dynamics were easier for me. And then like slowly I got tired of that, bored, and I turned into sadism, like more sadistic torture. And even that at some point kind of went too extreme, too far. So felt like, what's the point? I'm taking things really in this really far direction, like where it's becoming dangerous for the body. I want to learn what else is out there. Is there any other option besides like fetishes, sadism, and erotic tease and denial kind of scenes? So I started to look for more, and that's how I found out like that's going to be my niche, Tantra and BDSM together. I want to bring this self-awareness, like this self-inquiry. I want to bring different therapeutic modalities into the space so we can dig deeper. And that really put my soul on fire. I just felt like, wow, this is the whole depth I've been looking for. It will take it into deeper dimensions. It will help someone, like, instead of becoming addicted to fantasy, they can become more integrated in their life. They can use their fantasy as a tool for reconnection with themselves, to integrate those missing pieces of their psyche, because that's what ultimately these fantasies are. They are some missing pieces of ourselves that want to be owned. And it's all about the intentionality, safety of the space, holistic approach, certain rituals. And I brought everything that I've learned in Tantra in Asia. I went to India and Thailand a lot to study this, and I brought it all back to New York City, and I started to announce to my clients, like, we are going to take it differently. We're going to dig deeper. We're going to go to the core of your fantasy, because we have the intention to give you a beautiful life after you go back home. So everything feels much better, and everything feels more light and beautiful and free, and somehow your life improves after those journeys. So, and that was my final turning point in my dom career, when I realized there is value in what I offer, not just for fun, but there is bigger holistic spiritual value in what I have to offer.
Yeah, absolutely. That's so profound and so deep. And I definitely resonate with that journey of like, I didn't professionally practice in the space of kink or BDSM, but I found myself very drawn to those themes from like a young age. And it was like very unconscious at the beginning, and in some ways, like potentially re-traumatizing. And it wasn't until I went through my Tantra healing sort of journey that I was able to approach it from a completely different perspective and have, deep, profound healing in that way. And it sounds like what you're talking about to me when you like go into detail about finding the root of someone's fantasy and exploring those depths. To me, that sounds like sexual shadow work. Would you agree that that's like the same sort of idea?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, amazing. And there are episodes on this podcast for listeners if you're interested in learning more about sexual shadow work specifically. I also have a free sexual shadow work workbook on my website if you go to free offers. That being said, that's incredible and so powerful. And thank you so much for speaking into that. I found you, or I kind of followed you as a Shibari artist. That was like my main understanding of you and your work. I actually didn't know so much about the Tantra side of your work. But I've also had profound healing from Shibari and use it in a very much more beginner space than you're operating in my own work, in my own practice. But I'm curious if you could speak more into like, what is Shibari? Why would someone want to work with it, etc.?
That was exactly the next stage after embracing on Tantric BDSM journey, about approaching this from a more holistic lens. I started to question more like the surroundings, the type of people I'm working, the tools that I'm working with, what serves me the best, what serves me more. And through luck or serendipity or grace, I met my Shibari guru on Tantric Island. I went to see him for a session, and a lot of women told me there they trust him so much, that he's incredible. I met him, I had a beautiful connection right away. I could feel he really knows what he's doing. And he can hold space for me, which is rare for me to discover people who can hold space for me. I find myself generally so strong that I can do it for myself. And when someone can do it for me, it's a privilege. So I went to see him for a session, and it was Shibari. For 5 hours, he's been tying me, untying me, putting me in all kinds of suspension position. I was wild, but it took me to the moon and back. I could see like the whole landscape of my psyche, like what I'm made of, all my deepest like traumas and fears and desires and dreams. Like I got so unpacked into all these pieces of myself, and I was so safe to look at it just through rope. Seriously, it was just rope. Of course, his energy flow, his movement, his intentionality, and yet the rope itself. There was no other additional tools but a rope. And I was just mesmerized. After that, I realized that's it. Shibari is what I'm doing now. Please, please mentor me. Please take me under your wing. I want to learn it. So I started to learn it from him. His name is Bodhi. And then I took it further and I learned it from Tati, another mentor. Eventually I was able to bring it back to New York and say like, hey, now I'm only practicing Shibari. And I was really happy that it was well received. Then I started to have more women as clients, not only men as I used to work with. A lot of women were really curious about rope. Somehow rope really calls people in. There is so much curiosity and artistry. And yeah, I feel like we're lucky that rope is quite trendy now. Society is more open-minded about it. Doesn't look that creepy. It looks pretty beautiful and artistic. And there is a lot of therapeutic value in being tied up, because once you're tied up, you're feeling everything. You're free to feel yourself. You're free to feel your soul, feel your heart, feel your pain, feel your dreams, desires. Everything is just right there. You just really feel all the things that you couldn't feel before. Why? Because your mind is too busy, because you think you have so much control. You need to decide everything. You need to figure out life. You need to make plans, schedules, and all of that thinking process is really what clutters our seeing. So we cannot see ourselves clearly. And then from that kind of like foggy windows, we cannot see the world as clearly. So what happens through ropes is that our nervous system gets the signal that, hey, like slow down, there is nothing to control anymore, no need to decide on anything anymore. You can just rest, you can just finally like relax and just be there. And from that space of being, like the mind gets quiet and you can finally start see what's happening in your unconscious, all the things that are usually overlooked. And that's the beauty of rope, because people get to experience such incredible states of being through that. It can be soft, meditative, it can be wild, it can be rage, it can be like a lot of sexuality, like sexual desire and fantasy involved, but it can be anything and everything in between, because those things are intertwined. It's not just one or the other. It tends to be different waves every moment, shifting from one to another, and you just become a piece of art in yourself, because all this beautiful landscapes of feelings, emotions, thoughts, dreams, ideas, everything is right there in front of you, and you can just experience it, like squeeze the juice out of every moment and be with everything that's there, and there is nothing else is needed. You just really rejoicing in your own aliveness. That's pretty much the short description of a classic rope journey.
Yeah, absolutely. I love the rope. I haven't had such a long journey as you've had in it, but the journeys that I have had have all been like a bit of like almost like a plant medicine journey in some ways. Like it does bring you to this altered state. And I think that some people call it subspace in that way. But to me, it's really just this state of surrender. It's the sacred surrender. And so many of us perceive, or we're conditioned to perceive, the concept of surrender as this like disempowering sort of idea, or like I'm giving my power away by surrendering, when in reality, when you're doing it in a space with someone that you trust, it can be a tool for reclaiming power and reclaiming presence, because as you said, you're just fully receiving whatever is available there in the moment and really just being present with yourself, which is something that we don't often have the opportunity to experience.
Exactly. You're ultimately surrendering to yourself. You are the one who is deciding to surrender every moment. And it's really not so much about the other. It's about you trusting yourself that this is the right time to surrender, or you can also make a choice that this is not the right time to surrender. So it's a very empowering, ultimately experience, because you get to call the shots. You get to call the situation safe or not safe for you to surrender, which is incredible that you get to have such agency to see
Mhm.
that now it's the good time for me to fall apart. Like this is the right space, this is the right guide, or other times it's not the right time. And it's really incredible to be able to make this choice for yourself, because you know that you have the power to choose at any moment. Every moment you get to have a power to choose. So this is what creates that safe space for you to fall apart. This is what I like to describe my work as that safe space to fall apart, because I really specialize in making it safe for someone, making it safe for someone to feel some triggers, making it safe for someone to feel exposed, to feel vulnerable, to feel emotional, to feel joyful, to feel their
Yeah.
like sexual juices flowing, to feel their playfulness, to feel their rage. Like anything and everything is possible. And that's the beauty of being a human, when you know that you are safe to be you and you don't need to be someone else. You don't need to design new masks to cover up your vulnerability. It's finally the time to really blossom into yourself.
Mm. So beautiful. All of that is
Mm.
so, so beautiful. And I really love the emphasis on this like safety and this held container, which, just to reiterate for everyone listening, it is important to like really find someone that you trust to explore these spaces and to see this as an opportunity, especially if you've surrendered in the past or been forced to surrender or had your boundaries or whatever violated in any way in the past, to be in a space where you're
Yes.
consciously making the choice to, invoke or revoke boundaries or play with that idea of surrender. It can be so healing as a way to rebuild your trust with yourself and also rebuild your trust with others as well. Um,
Exactly. I love how you like describing it, so precise.
Yeah, yeah. I also love the way that you speak as well. I'm just really taking in all of your words because you're saying so many things that really resonate with me, but I would never say it in the way that you're saying, really landing. So I'm like, okay, cool. Let's just kind of pin some of these things. Another thing about surrender to me too is like it can be such a portal to new worlds. Like and we're surrendering in every moment, whether we realize it or not,
Yeah.
to one thing or another. That's kind of how we decide even just how to manage our time. Is a one example of surrender. Will you surrender into one activity or another? And that's giving up one thing but opening up the potential of another. Even something as simple as like closing our eyes can be a portal into a new world, whether it be closing your eyes to go to sleep, to meditate, or to meditate. There's all these opportunities, but you can experience it in a full body profound way with Shibari or with a vulnerability guide or with BDSM or kink as well.
Yeah, Shibari in a way can be compared to plant medicine journey, like of course, if it's done in a conscious container like this intentionally. And of course, integration is the key here too, because you can experience something that is so beautiful, that freedom within yourself, that safety. And then what can you learn from it? How can you take it further in life into every little moment? It
Yeah.
doesn't have to be so dramatic all the time where you're hanging upside down and screaming. It can be something more refined and subtle, as long as you choose to learn from it and make little changes in your life, so it can have a really beautiful impact on everyday life situations.
Yeah, absolutely. I love that. I love you speaking into it. And I know that this integration piece is also really linked to your tantra work as well, which we haven't talked about. And I'm really excited to have you on the podcast to talk about specifically yoni massage, because it's something that I haven't had a female guest on to talk about this. As like someone who is a practitioner. I've had a male practitioner come on, Justin, share his experience
Mm.
being a practitioner of yoni massage. I've had, some women that advocate for doing yoni massage on yourself, which is amazing. But there's something really special to be said for going to a female practitioner for yoni massage, which I actually haven't even done yet. So maybe we get to do that. But I'd love to hear a little bit more about your experience with that.
Yes, I felt very privileged that when I was 23, 24, I ended up in Thailand. That's when my dom career have started. And I realized, oh, I can travel more now. Let me go to Thailand. I discovered this Tantric yoga school where they introduced me to this practice. And I was quite surprised. Like they were talking about women being able to have all these orgasms that are so different, vaginal orgasms, which are the ones that I never had. And of course, in Russia, we had a whole different never an education on that. Even the magazines that were allowed to write about female sexuality, which was rare, but they would say things like, well, only porn stars can scream from vaginal sex, they're all faking it. You just do the same and you just enjoy the clitoral stimulation with a vibrator. So I just settled for that, but I felt there has to be more than this. And once I heard the lecture on tantric sexuality of women being multi-orgasmic, that orgasm is not just getting off in pleasure, it's a connection with divinity. And I was just so beautiful. It's so hard to believe. And then finally I came to this tantric massage to really learn that. So, okay, please show me. I'm so curious. I don't feel anything inside. I want to feel something. And yes, and it was a humbling experience. Initially, I had to face that my yoni is numb. She doesn't feel anything. But my massage professional, she was staying very patient with me. And she was asking, like, let's see, why is she numb? What is there? Why would she be this way? Let's ask her. Let's be with her. Let's be patient. So then next massage, the numbness opened up into pain. And then I had to meet all of those things that have been trapped in me, like shame, this guilt, this all kinds of limiting beliefs around sexuality. All of this was coming through my yoni as I was massaged. It was not an easy process. At times I felt like I'm even projecting my shame upon her. I would just scream like, are you laughing at me? Are you making fun of me? Are you judging me? And she says, no, I'm quiet. I'm not doing anything, darling. I'm here for you. I would just realize, oh my God, it's my own imagination. It's the way I was raised. It's what's been put on me, like all the layers of my own sexual shame were just coming through. And it's afterwards, everything started to change. Less pain started to change into pleasure. And it was just happening over like the course of like 3-4 massages. It wasn't like a lot of them. It was a few, and the change was drastic. I was really shifting entirely. And the energy flow that I started to feel in my body was incredible. Like I never imagined that this is really possible. I thought sexuality was only about genitals, but no, it involved everything, my whole expression, my whole being, my whole body. Everything started to become so alive. And that's when I realized, what is this ultimate orgasms we are all chasing, right? It's not the localized one. It's something that involves everything. That's something that brings us to unity, to that state of satori or oneness, to this ultimate intimacy where there is no separation. And being able to experience this through sexual stimulation was something incredibly new that I never thought would be possible. So that was life-changing for me. Just receiving few yoni massages like that really shifted my perspective on sexuality, helped me to unpack and release so many trapped feelings, limiting beliefs, emotions, and really changed me as a lover. I could never have a superficial sex after that. After experiencing this once, I just couldn't be with a lover who would use me to get off basically fast. Like I knew that I need proper person, a set and setting, proper like situation where this kind of interaction would be possible, this new way of relating sexually.
Yeah, beautiful. And so now you now professionally work with women and offer this as a modality for, your vulnerability guiding. I'm curious to speak more about like what it means as a woman to go to a female practitioner, because I've gone to male practitioners or had my partners do the yoni massage on me. And in a lot of the trainings that I've done, it's all been like men work on women, women work on men. And I think that is like the traditional path. And partially, I know for myself, at least when I got my very first yoni massage, I was like, I want to go to a male practitioner because I'm interested in men. Right. And I ended up actually, having like this practitioner cross my boundaries, which doesn't necessarily, mean that all male practitioners are going to do this or whatever. That's another whole conversation around understanding discernment and learning, how to vet potential practitioners, which again, there's a whole episode about that whole story and what I recommend for people that are looking for tantric body work from men. But in the context of this conversation, I love to hear like what does it mean to go to a female practitioner as a female to receive yoni massage?
Yeah, good point. How you said, like, I would go to male practitioner because I'm attracted to men. And this is exactly what we are exploring in our feminine space, because in women to women, we actually don't need the polarity and sexual attraction to the person who is massaging us in order to actually relax and feel arousal. And
Yeah.
it's a different type of arousal that's possible in a sisterhood, because here we are not chasing the arousal as form of magnetism, like desire for one another, getting aroused through one another. What I'm doing is I'm giving yoni massages. To give an example, I'm creating a safe space for her to burn her own juices, so to speak, for her to get aroused through herself, through her body, opening up to ultimate safety, relaxation, and trust. So this is really what arouses our body too. So it's just a different mode of arousal, which is fascinating to even discover, because obviously it doesn't come as, something spontaneously just happening to most people, right? We are more conditioned to seek that magnetism, polarity, like the sexual attraction to this person. And that will, of course, depend on all kinds of conditioned factors, such as the way they look, the way they present themselves, how sexy they are. And it's great. It's a great mode of interacting and relating. It's amazing. Yet there is a possibility of creating the safe space where a woman can be completely in her own energies and being safe within her own energy fields. And this is where body and yonis and minds and souls tend to blossom. So all of this opening just happens in a space of surrender and trust, vulnerability, connection, and just slowing down and being able to relax so deeply. And what's really makes this kind of connection even more attractive, that there is no layer of danger there, because when there is a man practitioner offering that, there are lots more fears tend to come for women, like, how is he looking at me? What is he thinking of me? Am I attractive? What if he evaluates me? What if he has some of his own desires that are interfering somehow? So all of those things are really easily possible in interaction of man to female. And that's why many women would not even go to a man, because they don't feel safe, because there is this fear that he will be devouring them, he will be staring at them, he will be evaluating them. They will not feel safe enough. While with women, there tends to be more neutral atmosphere of, and women tend to understand each other in this way so much better, because we obviously have neonis and we know how it feels to be safe, how it feels to be held, and it's easier to communicate our female subjects, female to female. So yeah, there is of course a lot of great benefit, a lot of different potentials for healing when it comes to working with men, because I did work with both male and female practitioners, and each one of them had like great benefits. And yet I can see a lot of potentiality in the sisterhood space, because it's definitely has this less threatening vibe, less room for projections on one another, because where I'm ultimately guiding them is into themselves. My story, my attraction, my desires, my needs are completely out of the picture. I'm just there to hold space for their own situation to unfold. And this is what makes them get aroused through themselves only. I'm just a tool. I'm a space holder. I'm someone who like gives the best like techniques and knowledge and like energetics of the touch, but otherwise my story, like my looks, my agendas, my preferences are completely outside of the equation. So that gives this extra layer of safety for them to really dive into their body and to really see how much it's really possible just being in your own self, in your own juice, in your own field, in your own energy, like how much interaction there is possible, how much you can feel, how much you can perceive, how much you can get notice in yourself, like all this orgasmic potential that is really possible without needing to have the passion, the desire, the polarity for someone else, without needing to involve someone else. So that really opens up the potential of sexuality, in that you're not needing desire for someone. Instead, you can create the safe space where all of this just comes naturally through your own field.
Yeah, beautiful. Thank you for speaking into all of that. I resonate deeply, as you know, I work with women as well. And that's definitely to me the space that's available, this sort of like nurturing, sisterly, and also deeply intuitive, connective space that, I don't think is as common when you're working with a male practitioner, although there are a whole different set of potential benefits of working with a man as a woman in that way. So,
Yes, definitely. Each interaction has its own benefit. I can see that. And yeah,
mm,
I really advocate for sisterhood. I can feel how much beauty and potentiality we have in uniting ourselves, women with women, and really working, exploring together and opening up to one another. So we don't compete, but we feel united, because once a
yeah,
woman starts to open up in front of a woman, we will see that the things we're facing are similar. We're really fighting the same battles. We're seeing the same demons, and it's really beautiful to get united and to just speak to each other. I hear you, sister. I'm
yeah.
there with you. I'm there with you. We all go through this together.
Yeah, agreed. Absolutely. And from our previous conversations, I know that this is something that you're really passionate about bringing forward to the world and creating more space for women to step into their power of holding space, of supporting other women. So I'd love to know if you'd be interested in sharing a little bit more about that, because you do like train individuals, right? Or yeah, would you like to speak into?
So I feel like my work as a yoni massage practitioner is really exploding. It's kind of it's my momentum, so to speak. And finally, there are a lot of women approaching me, and I can see how transformational this potential is, because I'm hearing the feedback from women. Usually, one massage alone is really enough to make major shifts in their sexuality in general, their way they love themselves, the way they connect to themselves, has major ripple effects on their families. So I have no doubt how powerful and profound it is. And I keep on getting asked, like, do you know some other practitioner like you somewhere in New York? Do you know someone in California? And I have women flying to me from other states, because I
Yeah,
can see how needed it is. And it's incredible to be recognized for me too, because it took me some time to see, like, is the world ready for this? It was one like Tantric island in Thailand, but can I really take it to the States? Is it like needed, and how will they
yeah,
receive it? And I'm really pleased to see that women recognize the beauty of this work. And what really happened is my mentor, and she's in Quebec. Her name is Surya. She has 10 more years experience in that, and she taught me back in Thailand. And she says the same thing. It's really exploding. So many women want to receive this body work. So many women share incredible feedback. We need more of us. We
yeah,
want to expand. We want to create more practitioners, because it's really not enough. And that would be the best way we can serve the world and ourselves too, because we will get exhausted if we just do massages all the time, every day. Like,
yeah,
I cannot do many, it's a lot. So having more of us would be the best solution for everything. And we're really passionate about the sisterhood, so we can have a community of women like us, so we can offer it to one another. We can see each other's
mhm,
blind spots. We can refer clients to each other. We can have different ways that we can continue our education and improve our skills, and definitely expand, create more women
yeah,
practitioners, so it will be normalized. So it's everywhere. Women everywhere around the world can access this beautiful body work. I mean, that's the best mission for myself I can possibly imagine. So it's not only for super spiritual, privileged kind of women in the right circles and who
yeah,
can find a practitioner. Like, so far, it's a rare and it's a privileged type of service. But I would love to see it becoming so normalized, just like visiting gynecologists once a year to get your exam. Well, you can visit your yoni massage practitioner and really tune into your sexuality and really dive deeper, open up more potential, really
yeah,
see possible places where you're stuck, maybe see possible new potential for expansion, because it's a really multidimensional experience. It can be really profound. And I feel like, why do we need to hide it from the world? We need to make it
yeah.
available, accessible, possible, desired, because it's incredible. Yes.
I totally agree. I resonate with all of that. And I'm so excited that you're bringing it, making it more available to more women. So I love that. I'm starting to feel like we've got some great content here and we can begin to wrap up. I have a couple of just like last questions I ask all the guests.
Mm-hmm.
I'm curious if there's anything you feel called to add or speak into before we begin to land.
No, I'm happy with your questions. You asked me right once.
Okay, amazing. So one question that I ask every guest is, what awakens your arrows? What turns you on? What makes you feel erotically alive?
I love those cute personal questions like that.
Me
What
too.
makes me feel erotic alive? Oh, there are many things, but I love surprises, basically. Yeah, I know that in order for us to feel safe, we need to be predictable, but I'm generally a person who finds a lot of safety in my sexuality at this point. So what really like brings the spark is when someone can lead me and surprise me. And yeah, the variety, the surprise, and of course, the intimacy, the depth of connection as a background of the space holding. I think those two things, when someone can really bring variety and surprise in my sex life, and when I feel the depth of trust, connection, where I can be vulnerable, when I can be just myself, and there is no demand for me
Yeah.
to be a certain way. I think this would be the really quick wrap up of how I would feel I would be on fire. Yeah.
Yeah. I love the idea of surprises being like a turn on, because to me, what surprises represent is this sense of like spontaneity, which calls for us to be
Mm,
present, right? So like when you have like a surprise or something come out of left field, it's like whoop, it immediately calls you to the present
yes.
moment to enjoy and to be like there for it and to receive it. So I love that. I feel like it's super tantric and
Hmm.
yeah.
Totally.
And where can listeners find you and or support you? How can they become involved in your work or work with
Yeah.
you or whatever?
So vulnerabilitycoaching.com, easy to remember. That's my website. And Rina_Trevi is my Insta. I'm more active there and sharing all the news and updates. So yeah, I love to educate folks on all of this, like teaching tantric massages for both men and women, couples, professionals. I love to teach Tantra and BDSM, how to practice BDSM mindfully so it can bring you closer together and have some holistic results in that. So also it's suitable for couples and professionals. So that's educational pursuits are amongst my favorites. So please find me. Don't hesitate to reach out. I love curious questions. That is also part of being surprised when someone asks me some curious, beautiful, unusual kind of questions. So I'm always open to those kind of questions. And yeah, I'm happy to connect with those who are like-minded, who are in a similar path sexually, spiritually, and your personal development. I love to stay connected with like-minded folks.
Amazing. Well, thank you again, Rina, for joining me today. And I also want to express my gratitude to the listener. Thank you once more for opening yourself up to the idea of sacred sexuality. With so much gratitude and love, have a sexy and spiritual day. And I'll catch you next week on Talk Tantra to Me. Ta ta.
Bye bye.